Many thanks for staying tuned to the front burners, and we're still on policy discuss. Today is World Radio Day. I'm going to ring it like a bell so that you hear it, and that's because radio has done a lot in society from when it started in Nigeria in 1935 down to this time. It has helped shape society because radio remains a great tool to disseminate information, particularly to underserved areas. Some persons may not watch TV, but when it comes to radio, a lot of people listen to radio. Even when you go to the marketplace, you find their bookie is just by his corner with one, transistor radio and is listening to information. To celebrate this day, we brought to you a veteran broadcaster, Patrick Oke, who is in the studio with us this morning. Good morning, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I should congratulate you guys for remembering radio, because now everybody seems to be, gearing towards television, as if television is all there is about mass communication. But just like you said, radio was the beginning, and I think in the latter times it also play a great deal of role.
If we're talking about radio and how it's helped shape society, like I said earlier, even when you get to the marketplace, you still find people listening to the radio, wanting to follow up on what's going on, what's happening, as much as they do their business. What would you say radio has been able to do in that regard, particularly in Nigeria?
Well, you find out that radio has a more penetrative power than television, because television is a very limiting medium. First, you have to have constant light. Apart from the fact now that you can just pick up anything on your phone, before it was cumbersome, and it was like a fixation time demanding. You have to be there at a certain time to see a certain program. But radio is like everywhere, Before now, it was like everywhere, just like you mentioned. You would see the, security guard with his little radio set, particularly in the north, which was, and you could do it with your batteries. You didn't need light, you didn't need anything. It's so, friendly everywhere. You can listen to it in the car, anywhere you are. So radio has a more penetrative power than television. And they call radio a hot medium because it can get everywhere. Television, on the other hand, is a cool medium. In other words, yes, it's more influential, like television can actually influence more people than radio, because you actually see and you become part of what you're seeing, and it's very easy to relate to it. But radio, you just get the information, you process it the way you want, and you take what you want from it. But as far as the power to influence, television has it. But then television's limitation is that it is situational and it's very time conscious, and you can only do it in certain places, not everywhere. Not live, of course, on your set. You carry the whole trouble in the world, even when you go on a retreat. They don't leave you alone. All the channels are there. You can do it on your phone, but it wasn't always like that.
Yeah. Congratulations on having you on live set today. For me, it's a privilege, and I want to treasure that privilege. But looking at it, radio in Nigeria, before we come to the theme of this day's celebration, transitioning from public-owned radio to now private participation. And it seems that the Nigerian Broadcasting Service still sees radio as a social service, and not minding the huge investment that come into it. And we cannot balance how we're going to just educate and inform the public with stakeholders' money, and of course not thinking about radio making money. How do you think that we can balance that from
the thing is that you have to go back to the origin of radio. First of all, when we were a colonial state, the British needed to communicate to us, so they had the RDS, what you call Radio Diffusion Service, which was just a conglomeration of loudspeakers put at various places, locations which they wanted. We could broadcast what BBC was doing. So it was like a colonial tool to galvanize a colonialized people. Then when the radio developed, it developed from the angle that it was a government tool to reach the people, to educate, to indoctrinate, to tell them how to be part of the national spirit of a Nigeria, of a nation. So that's how it developed. And until now, just like you say, that concept is still in the minds of all those who have been running it. But, as modern society dictates, there is no free lunch. You can't have this service without a means to pay for it. So the commercialized part of radio just crept in these last days when people began to realize the information is not cheap, it's expensive. You need people, what they say is that it takes 11 people, 11 hours to produce 1 minute of television. And all that process is money. You can see what you do here, for example, before you put together, see what you look at all the reports and everything you have to do to get 1 minute of television across. So it costs money, it's labor intensive, so it has to be paid for somehow. But the origin of it was a system where government could reach the people. And people have not broken away. If you say the people you are talking about haven't quite broken away from that mindset yet. But, situation in the world now dictates you can't have it like that anymore. You have to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to look at, from your generation,
Yes.
the way radio impacted the life of the people.
Yes.
And how it reflected in the life of the people. The motto, information, education, and entertainment,
yes.
reflecting in the life of the people just
yes.
because they have a radio set to listen to.
Yes.
Could you please explain that concept?
Well, the thing is, before, radio was not looked at as purely an entertainment medium. It was just like I said, it was the tool of the colonial masters, or later the federal government tool, to reach the people, to give them information that would integrate them into government. That was the essential thing. And later on, I think in the 1960-something, they now formed what you call the education arm of radio, which was very good, based in Ibadan. And the aim was to teach, because our people needed to be educated. Those who couldn't go to school needed a medium to learn from. So they had the educational service geared towards primary school, secondary school, technical school, colleges, and so on. And these were, programmed strategically in the programming schedule of the day. So that was a good thing, because educating the people, which is one of the aims of radio, was served through that, although information itself was educational, educative. Then the entertainment part of it was not so prominent at that time. People didn't quite see radio as merely an entertainment medium then, but now it is more, people are gearing towards more entertainment because they feel people are more attracted to entertainment than to serious stuff, and it's part of the trend of the modern person. People are looking for more entertainment than information, hardcore information. So the thing, it hasn't really shifted as much. I would say it has just evolved in tandem with what the trend is, what is perceived trend is of what's happening in the world.
Okay, let's look at this trend and the effect it's having on radio. So first, there's the innovation that has come up, that radio is no longer strictly audio, it's now audio-visual. So you have radio stations streaming, and then those who are listening can actually see the owner personalities, they can connect with them. It's more like they're better able to interact with them. And then we also have these innovations bringing on another type of communication, which is the podcast and other types of communication. Would you say these are competing with radio, or they're helping radio? What's your take on it?
They're naturally the next step of the communication experience, shall I say, where things start and develop. And people are no longer satisfied. In those days, when you had the RDS, the Radio Diffusion Service, it was like a set of symbol to have it in your area, to have these loudspeakers in your area, and people were like, to have it was great, But many things have developed. It's no longer like that. People are not just pleased with seeing signs of tech. Because, you see, the awe about radio was, it was one of those technological advances which people, marveled at. In Yoruba, they called it asoromagbesi, that means something that talks to you. Wow. You cannot reply.
Yeah.
So you understand. So that was very fascinating at that time. But things have changed a lot. Radio is not a competition, it's a progression. You know, before I was just telling the little boy I came with that when I entered this building, remember in 1983, that's when it got burnt.
Yeah.
And there was so much hullabaloo about what is going to happen to the building. And when I came in today and I said, yes, this is what's going to happen to the building, the sock is here. I mean, this is, the whole place had been, renovated fashion, and it's a very glorious compliment to what should have happened here. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you see, if you look at radio is not now, it has to meet the demands of the people. People don't just want to hear, they want to experience. And for you to get, in our own day, Radio Nigeria was the only radio station. And those days, when they come to pick us, when we go to work in the Radio Nigeria van, we were so happy to just be inside the van because people just looked at you as if you were larger than life because you were, on radio. It's not the same anymore. There's so many radio stations, so many choices, so many different angles people are coming from that, who were the last national performers on TV, for example, who went on TV. NTA was the only, national television broadcasting station. So everywhere we went, people knew you in the north, in the south, in the east and west. It's not so anymore. It's not so centralized, So things develop. Radio must grow, must develop to meet with the demands of the current generation. And that is what is happening. It's not a competition, it's a progression.
Okay, thank you. Coming to the thing for today's celebration, radio and climate change. And we're also living in an environment where, of course, programmers and production people in radio talk more about entertainment. Yeah. And that seems to be what sells. Are you thinking that the Nigerian radio space, is actually prepared for this kind of a hardcore communication?
No, it's not. The thing is this, that we must understand, if you look at the Western societies, they got to a zenith, then they started deteriorating. We haven't gotten there, yet we started deteriorating. Because we are at their level where entertainment is necessary because they have achieved most things, so they can afford to relax. We haven't achieved much, yet we're already relaxing, We're
oh my God.
Yes. You see, we're buying the state they are at. After so many years of hard work, they've achieved a certain state where they cannot afford to just sit down and be entertained. But we have not reached that stage. Everything about us, you're talking about the climate, the environment. If you look at the environment in Nigeria, it's horrible. They say cleanliness is next to godliness. Nigerians seem to be so godly, yet they're not clean. I had a set of 12 Americans who came visiting. We had to entertain them and they had the misfortune, shall I say, of going by road from here to the east. So after spending 1 week there, when they got back, and I says to them, so you have seen Nigeria, so what do you think? And the next day they says to me, well, the place is not so bad, but why are you people so comfortable with dirt?
That's a big one.
Yes, that struck me. And I said, that's true. Because we're so used to it, it doesn't mean anything to us. We mean you don't walk past dirt every day. Look at the whole place. Before you could drive from here to Badagry, and it had greenery, and you saw things. Now you go on that corridor, it's horrible. You saw all kinds of things come onto Marina. Marina used to be a nice pleasure ride, but now they put clothes all along the way, the barbed wires, you look right, there's nothing to see that's pleasing. So you talk about climate change, which is a very highfalutin term. We have not reached the stage where we should be worrying about climate change. We should be worrying about our environment. how to make the environment human and livable. We don't have that yet, this consciousness. And the thing is, it's so easy to do something about it. Because all you need to do is to tell everybody, make sure your environment and frontage is clean. If you don't, this is the fine. That's all. Nobody needs to do anything massive. Just let people like this building. You guys, you live here, you work here. Make sure your frontage is neat. If you don't keep it neat, this is the fine. That's all that is needed. And everybody will be up and doing. But because nobody is conscious, nobody is thinking, cleanliness is next to godliness. If you say you visit a country, what is the country? The country is the public spaces. That's the country. It's not. It's the public places. How are your streets? How neat are they? How neat is the environment? That's the country. People don't go into other people's houses when they travel. When you go abroad, for example. The country is the public space. And if you want people to respect you as a nation, you must keep and be conscious of your public space. You know, so this climate change thing we're talking about is, you know, slightly above our reckoning right now. Let us be realistic and face the things that we can control. Personally, I don't think you can control climate change.
All right, thank you very much. Now, from the advent during your time where radio was progressing to the current advanced stage that we are now, there's been this talk, content is king, content is king. And I grew up to hear that phrase. Would you say the content that was, you know, in the trend, your time, and now, how would you place them in the pedestal? Would you say it has been watered down now that we have many radio stations proliferated around the area? Or would you say it has more value than what it used to be?
Well, the thing is, you know, the technology to pass information has improved a lot. Very much like on our time. When we had these huge tapes, you had to edit and it's yours. You just go somewhere and get it. As for content, if you go back to the early 70s or 80s and you actually brought a radio program or brought a television program produced in those times, then you now compared it to what you have now, there's no comparison. There was much more quality, much more thought, much more order in all these things. People were deeper thinkers then than now. And you can't blame the modern generation because they're used to fast things, you know. In those days, if you saw a TV program, you'd be so engrossed. I mean, for example, tell me now, where are the village headmasters? Where are the cockcrow at dawns? Where are all those, you know, the masquerade? This is what, you know, even now, when you sit down and watch those things, you'll be wondering, this was good, quality-wise, production-wise, everything. But people are so used to like just keeping over things. The depth of programming, although technology has improved, the depth of programming hasn't. People are getting, you know, more narrow-minded, I think, and then they're taking so many things for granted. Those days on radio, if you went to the library of Radio Nigeria, for example, and you wrote down the title of a song, you went to the library and there was a diary, you would see the title of the song, not only the person who played it, but who published it, who was the lead singer. And you must state before you use it how many minutes you're going to play it for, because that determines the royalty that the musician and the publisher gets. And anything you wanted, all you needed was a title.
Okay.
Once you have it, all the information you needed was in the library. I'm not talking about the electronic library now, which
On a final note, technology was supposed to make things better. These days we have, we're gradually seeing the veterans move out, retire, and the space is being taken over by young people. If you go to many radio stations, majority of the owner personalities are Gen Zs, very young people.
Yeah.
So what's your advice to them in using technology to do research, to get information, so that even when you're talking, you have a handle on what you're saying, so that the listening audience can feel somewhat trapped.
Yes.
They're just there because they enjoy what you're dishing out.
You've just hit the nail on the head. I mean, now, any kind of information you want, you can get. Not like in our day when we had to read so many books and, you know, make so many references to get at some facts. Now you need to do, so you have access at the kind of knowledge and information which is awesome. It's awesome. So all it takes is a little time. You, the young generation, the Gen Zs, as you say, they are privileged. If they're really serious in their professions, they can do a lot because they have a lot at their disposal. So there's really no excuse. You know, you guys should be 100 times better than we were because we didn't have access to easy information as you now do. Do you understand? So this is it. People have to be, all the Gen Zs or whatever, they are very smart, they look good, they look sharp and bright, but a lot are shallow. And that shouldn't be.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick Oke, who is a veteran broadcaster. From the way he talks, you know that in his days on radio, wow, once you tune in, whatever channel he was on at that time, you cannot move away.
Can't touch the dial
yes, you
anymore.
can't touch the dial. And I believe that the phrase, keep it locked, came from when people like you were on radio.
It was fun. It was great.
It's been an interesting conversation with you here. We hope to bring you another time
Yes.
and just have a talk with you.
Yeah.